السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. اللهم يا رحمن يا رحيم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم يا ربنا اجعلنا من أهلك. اللهم يا ربنا اجعلنا من أهل القرآن. اللهم تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. سبحانك ربي لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. لك العتبى حتى ترضى ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بك. Inshallah, today I would like to take the seerah from the subject concentration. So if you remember from last time, there are two ways to tackle the seerah. One way is where you go in the chronological order of the events. So they talk about the birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he grew up, his time with Halima as-Sa'diyya, and then when the wahi came to him, and all the way when he went to Ta'if, and then he migrated to Medina, and his life afterwards after the hijrah. So that is the most common way of studying seerah. The other way of studying seerah is that you take a subject from the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you get everything in his life that actually falls under that subject. So you say, for example, how was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the war, in the battlefield, or when there were battles? How did he sallallahu alaihi wasallam behave? Or you can say, for example, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to have more than one wife. So how did he work with them? And of course his life was long enough that there were multiple incidents in there. So this way is where you say, okay, here is a topic, let's see from the whole seerah what has been mentioned about this particular topic, right? So this is the second way of studying seerah, and this is very common, and actually sometimes it's more beneficial to study this way because now it's more actionable, right? If I know about an incident that has happened in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I would say, well, yeah, I mean there are multiple things to learn from there, but they may not be related. So you probably may miss a couple of them. But then if you are saying, for example, I want to know how he sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to eat, what is the sunnah of his eating? And then there's a hadith when Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was eating with someone, and he used his left hand, and he sallallahu alaihi wasallam instructed him to use his right hand, and so on. And there's another hadith where he was with a boy, and he said, take from what is in front of you, don't go elsewhere. I mean, there are multiple incidents that have happened that talked about how he sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to eat and how he used to behave in this. So today I will just give you that an example of this, and let's talk about how he sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to do his dua. Now the sunan and adab and the incidents that have happened in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about dua are countless. So we will not be able to cover everything. But let's inshallah do whatever we can, inshallah. So let's start with a hadith in Sahih Muslim. And by the way, the seerah, we need to understand that seerah also should be received just like how we receive a hadith. We cannot just say, there are people who say, here's a story. Okay, tell me, where's the source of this story? It has to be authentic, or otherwise you cannot just claim it, right? So there are many incidents in the seerah that people are usually aware of, but if you dig deeper into the source, they are not authentic. And many of them are fabricated. And wal'ayadu billah, sometimes those common stories that people know in the seerah are actually against Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they keep saying them. So there was an attempt to, by our scholars in the past and even recently to say, okay, how can we get into a point where we say Sahih as-Sirah al-Nabawiyya, the authentic portion of the Sirah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So how do they get it? They get it from all those ahadith in all the various ahadith books like Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, etc. So let's start with one. The hadith is talking about the time when Rasulullah finished the battle of Hunayn. Hunayn, as you may know, was one of the difficult battles in the time of Rasulullah because when the Sahaba went to the battle, they were like لَن نُغْلَبَ الْيَوْمَ مِنْ قِلَّةٍ. They were huge in number, and they said today, and this was the very unique time that they were going to the battle with a huge number. Usually they are the small number, and they would seek the help and support from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Rabbi anqidna. So for example, in the time of the Battle of Badr, the Muslims were about 300. The kuffar were over 1,000. So you can tell, I mean, more than 3 times, right? So it's a huge difference. But in the Battle of Hunayn, subhanallah, they were the greater in number. So they were saying, we will not be defeated this time because we are huge. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then of course they actually went into a very, very sad moment. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, وَيَوْمَ حُنَيْنٍ إِذْ أَعْجَبَتْكُمْ كَثْرَتُكُمْ فَلَمْ تُغْنِ عَنْكُمْ مِنَ اللَّهِ شَيْئًا. On that day of the Battle of Hunayn, you were impressed with how big your army was, but that did not help you at all, because it's only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you can receive victory, right? So after the Battle of Hunayn, He ﷺ has sent some groups of Sahaba to continue on, trying to recover from the defeat that they had. And among them, the groups that Rasul ﷺ has sent was there was a Sahabi by the name of Ubayd Abi Amir al-Ash'ari. Ubayd Abi Amir al-Ash'ari or Abu Amir al-Ash'ari was the cousin of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. We know Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, right? One of the common narrators of hadith. So this was his cousin. His name was Ubayd. His kunya was Abu Amir, and his laqab was al-Ash'ari. So he ﷺ sent him with another Sahabi by the name of Abu Musa. The hadith was narrated by Abu Musa, and he was, this hadith is in Sahih Muslim. He said that we went together and we had to face the mushrikeen. And as they were facing some of the mushrikeen, there was one who was had an arrow, and he managed to hit Ubayd or Abu Amir on his knee. So imagine an arrow that comes from a distance and it hits a person in the knee. Any doctor here? Any doctor? Okay, to my understanding, one of the most difficult places for to have bleeding is here, is the knee. I know it's here also, because many people who suicide, they cut here. So cutting here and cutting on the knee is very difficult. Anyways, Abu Musa saw this incident, and he ran after the one who sent the arrow. So Abu Musa managed to kill him. But then he went back to Ubayd Abi Amir, and he found him in a very bad situation. So Abu Amir asked him to help him to pull the arrow out or away, and he did. So, but then Abu Musa said, and again the hadith is in Sahih Muslim, he said, once I pulled the arrow, it was bleeding like severely. So he knew that Abu Amr is going to die. And Abu Amr, when he saw this, he was like, Abu Musa, please send my salutation to and my greetings to Prophet Muhammad, and ask him to make istighfar for me, to seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for me. So Abu Musa radiallahu anhu went to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam after, of course, they returned back to Medina, and he reached him sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he told him about the incident. So here's now, this is all seerah, right? This is all seerah, but now here's where we get into the dua. So the Abu Musa said that he sallallahu, when he heard about the incident, he sallallahu asked for water. So they brought him water, and he made wudu. Okay, so he made wudu, and then he faced the qibla. That's it. So look at this. So he first made wudu, he faced the qibla, and then he raised his hand up. The narrator said, Abu Musa, he said he raised them up until I was able to see his armpit. So he was doing like this. So of course, I mean, what we know is the sunnah is to do dua this way, right? But actually, from the sunnah also, especially when you are desperate about your dua, is to raise them all the way up until the armpit becomes visible. And then he sallallahu made his dua, Allahumma اغفر لعبيد أبي عامر اللهم اجعله فوق كثير من خلقك من الناس. He said, Oh Allah, forgive Ubayd Abi Amr. And oh Allah, make him in the day of judgment above most of the people from your creatures, oh Allah. So Abu Musa radiallahu anhu saw this incident, and he said, Ya Rasulullah, ud'u Allah li. Oh Allah, oh the Messenger of Allah, make dua for me as well. And he sallallahu made a dua for him. Wasn't as powerful, but he sallallahu said, Allahumma ghfir li Abi Musa. So this hadith is in Sahih Muslim, and it tells us about multiple things that he sallallahu did. First of all, doing the wudu, facing the qibla, raising the hands, and then making the dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Ubayd Abi Amr. So those are actually among the etiquettes of the dua. There's another hadith in which Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam was actually making his khutbah, and during the khutbah a person came and he said, Ya Rasulullah, halakat al-an'am. He was complaining about a drought that has happened in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that because of the lack of rain, that the animals started to die. So he sallallahu during the khutbah made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the rain. What do we call this in Arabic? Istisqa, exactly. Istisqa means asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for suqya, for water from in rain. So he sallallahu raised his hand this way, and he made the dua during the khutbah this way for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect them from the drought, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless them with water. This was the only dua in this seerah that he sallallahu raised his hand with his, what do we call this? It was his palm pointing down. All of the other incidents of dua in the seerah where his palm was facing up, except for this time. So the ulama actually have made a comment about this from a fiqh perspective. They said that he sallallahu never raised his hand during the khutbah in the dua. And by the way, this is a common mistake that we see, that some of the khatibs, when they make their khutbah, when they come to the point where they do their dua at the end of it, they raise their hands. This is wrong. He ﷺ never did it, except for this one incident. In the whole seerah, he ﷺ never raised his hand during khutbah in dua, although he used to do dua a lot. Except for this incident, and when he did it, his hands were like this. Now, I mean, just so that we take this tangent here, how about the ma'moom? Like the people who are praying with the imam, with the khatib, do they raise their hands at the time of dua? It's only in the Shafi'i madhab who said they raise their hands. But in all other madhab, they said no, because Rasul ﷺ has said, إِنَّمَا جُعِلَ الْإِمَامُ لِيُؤْتَمَّ بِهِ, that the purpose of an imam is so that people can follow him, right? So in the other madhahib, neither the imam would raise his hand in dua during the khutbah, nor the ma'moom, nor the people praying behind him. It's only in the Shafi'i madhab that the imam will not raise his hand, but the ma'moom will raise their hands, because they said that the vast majority of time that Rasulullah ﷺ did his dua, he was raising his hands. Okay, so and that's actually a very, very nice comment to put here, that many of the fiqh ruling, we take it from seerah, from the action of Rasulullah ﷺ. Because after all, it's either something that he ﷺ said or something that he ﷺ did, right? And that's how we get the rulings. Or otherwise, how do you know what is permissible, what is not, and what is the right and best way of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So we did say that he ﷺ once made dua like this, and he did dua this way, and that was his the most common way of him ﷺ. And by the way, some people do it this way. The sunnah is actually to bring your palm together like this, so they touch each other, and then you make it in front of your face. That's the sunnah, and that is the most common way of his dua, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he is so desperate, he would raise them up. And at the time of istisqa, he did it this way. Some of the ulama, and this is common in the Hanafi madhab, they say probably the reason he ﷺ made his dua this way at the time of istisqa, at the time of drought, is because he ﷺ was asking Allah to protect them from the hardship of the drought. So they say that if the dua is about, oh Allah, protect us from, for example, this wind or this pandemic or whatever, that they say that, okay, we can do it just like how he ﷺ made a dua about the drought, right? You see that common in the Hanafi madhab. But this is, all the ulama, they said it was only in the istisqa, and he ﷺ in many incidents has made dua to protect him and to protect the Sahaba from other things, and yet he was doing his dua the common way. So it's very good to understand where all the madhahib are coming from. And I always try to comment on this, that no one can say that our scholars came from no hadith or no sunnah. Because it's very common that people tell you, I'm telling you Allah and Prophet Muhammad have said this, and you tell me Abu Hanifa said that? Who should we follow? Of course we follow the Quran and Sunnah, but where did Abu Hanifa bring all of his knowledge? He only brought it from Quran and Sunnah. So, and same Imam Shafi'i did, and same Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal did, and same Imam Malik did. So the fact that people sometimes say, well, I want to teach you the Sunnah from the authentic Hadith, and we should not talk about those scholars because they were men and they were doing mistakes. Well, perhaps the most major mistake is this statement. When you say that I want to learn the Sunnah on my own, and I want to open the book of Hadith and try to understand it myself on my own interpretation, and then you leave behind all the greatest ulama and scholars who have actually studied the Sunnah a million times more than this person who just came. I mean, who would be knowing about the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam more than the people who were close to his time? Like Imam Abu Hanifa. Imam Abu Hanifa was the closest in time to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yet, of course, I mean, there were multiple other ulama, but I think the thing we need to understand is that those ulama, rahimahumullah, always had some reason or rationale behind their verdicts, like behind the rulings that they were telling. And one of the things that really bring joy to the Muslims is when they realize that, subhanallah, all of them they agreed on two things. One is that they fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they will never utter a word that is coming from their minds. It's only from the Quran and Sunnah. Yes, they may misinterpret. They may differ in opinions. Some of them might be in certain mas'ala more authentic or more close to the dalil than others. Of course, I mean, sometimes it's Abu Hanifa, sometimes it's Shafi'i, sometimes, of course this happens because they are humans after all. But none of them would utter a word except that it's coming from Sunnah, and that they feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they would never say it out of their minds. And the second one is that, subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed those people to be so knowledgeable. And it was not only about having knowledge about Quran and Sunnah. Because, I mean, who is now more knowledgeable than the Mr. Google? Or maybe the ChatGPT, because they memorize all the hadith, they have all the hadith. But it's not about just knowing the hadith. It's about knowing the hadith, knowing the Quran, understanding what the Salaf have practiced it, especially the Sahaba, knowing the Arabic language, knowing which statement came before the others, because sometimes the ruling goes over or takes over another ruling. Understanding the context of when he ﷺ made a hadith or said a statement or did something. I mean, no one can get this unless they have a very, very deep understanding or learning in the Sharia. Okay, so get back to the Sunnah. Again, the vast majority of his dua ﷺ was where he would raise his hand like this. So, do we have incidents about these? Of course, many, and let's talk about them. Those are from the seerah. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam was telling his Sahaba once, "Inna Allaha tayyibun la yaqbalu illa tayyiba." That verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pure from any imperfection. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pure from anything that is, from any deficiency and from any evilness. And He subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept any money or any donation except that it is coming also from purity, right? And then He sallallahu said, وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ أَمَرَكُمْ بِمَا أَمَرَ بِهِ الْمُرْسَلِينَ فَقَالَ سبحانه وتعالى يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ كُلُوا مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ أو كُلُوا مِنْ طَيِّبَاتِ مَا كَسَبْتُمْ. O the people, eat or consume from the best of what you have earned. And طيبات here means that they are coming from halal, right? Not only that it is permissible meat, but also actually more importantly that it's also coming from halal. And then He ﷺ said, or the narrator said, ثم ذكر الرجل. Then He ﷺ started to talk about a person, about a man, يطيل السفر, that a man who is in a long travel, أشعث أغبر, that his hair is not combed and his clothes are full of dust. يرفع يديه إلى السماء, would raise his hands all the way up. يا رب, يا رب. And and of course this is from the sunnah, is when you are desperate, raise your hand all the way up and say, Ya Rab. You say it from your heart. But then he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَمَطْعَمُهُ حَرَامٌ وَمَشْرَبُهُ حَرَامٌ وَغُذِّيَ بِالْحَرَامِ فَأَنَّى يُسْتَجَابُ لِذَلِكَ. But his food came from haram, meaning that he earned haram and he bought his food from haram. And his address is the same. And then he said, subhanAllah, this is very important, he said, وَغُذِّيَ بِالْحَرَامِ. غُذِّيَ بِالْحَرَامِ, it means he was fed haram stuff. And the ulama have said that perhaps one of the reasons that the dua may be rejected from a person is because of how his or her parents have fed them haram. I mean, many people these days do not understand this. Of course, لا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى, that no one will be responsible for the mistakes of others. Of course, we know this. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never bring those children, innocent children, accountable for the mistakes of their parents. But the hadith says, or wallahu alam, it means that most likely the fact that the parents will feed their children from haram resources, from haram income, it may raise the kids in a way that they will no more be responsible to or interested to earn the halal themselves. Because if I see my dad lying, I would lie. If I see my dad selling wine, I may probably sell wine, right? So وَغُذِّيَ بِالْحَرَامِ is because when they grew up, they were fed from haram, and they got used to it, and they found that this is okay, right? So it's very important for all of us to understand that earning halal, earning pure income is actually one of the biggest reasons for your dua to be accepted. Many of us actually do not understand this, and there are many ways that people may earn haram. Sometimes you do everything correct. Sometimes you do not only halal job, sometimes you do it in the masjid, right? But look at this. How do you think an income would be pure if the person is not fulfilling their duties at work? So say, for example, you work for the masjid. What could be better than this? But you are entitled to get this much of money for a 40 hours that you do per week. And this person is only doing 30. The income is haram. Haram, of course haram. Because that, I mean, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, al-Muslimuna ala shurutihim, that the Muslims have to follow the conditions that they have agreed upon at the time of the contract. They just cannot escape that. So what the hadith is saying on this incident is that for you to imagine that your dua will be accepted, even if you follow all the sunnahs, you're raising your hands up, you're showing your humbleness, you're showing how weak you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you are on travel. By the way, making dua while on travel is actually a reason for your dua to be accepted. So this is another sunnah. Make your dua while you are on travel. Make sure that when you are on travel that you make as many dua or as much dua as possible. So this person was doing all of this. He was making dua while travel. He was dusty, his hair is unkempt, which means actually that he was so in a so weak and desperate situation. He raised his hand up, he was saying, oh, Ya Rab, Ya Rab. But then the thing that prevents the dua from being accepted is that he was consuming the food and he was dressed up from a haram resource. Now let's move on, and inshallah I want to just make sure that we take things in their priority order. The most important thing that you need to imagine or to have at the time of dua is really to know your Lord, to know who you are making the dua for, the dua to, I'm sorry. So you are invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're making your supplications to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you should know who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So one of the things we need to always have in mind, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most generous. Allah Kareem subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would never turn you down if you really are truthful at the time when you make your dua. Because the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam also has said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَسْتَحْيِي مِنْ عَبْدِهِ إِذَا رَفَعَ يَدَيْهِ أَنْ يَرُدَّهُمَا صِفْرًا خَائِبَتَيْنِ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like that when His servant raises his hands or her hands up for dua, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put that down or will turn them with nothing. So knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer you is very important, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most generous. And you may, when you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Rabbi adkhilni al-Jannah, oh Allah, make me among the dwellers of Jannah, you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala something that is more valuable than anything in the entire universe, right? So why would you even think that Allah may not even give you what is in this world? If Allah may give you Jannah, Allah, of course Allah can even give you anything in this dunya. So understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is generous, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give you whatever is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to do, then just make your dua to the best of your ability, and don't think, oh, maybe I should not ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to become a scholar. Maybe I should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to become just a student of knowledge. No, why not? Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, when you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Jannah, ask Him for the highest rank, which is called Al-Firdaus. Okay. Now, the other thing is that when you invoke Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you should understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala listens to you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. You know that this is the only one place in Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not say فَقُلْ يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَنفَالِ قُلِ الْأَنفَالُ يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْمَحِيضِ قُلْ هُوَ أَذًى, and so on. When the patterns in the Quran is when they ask about this, say, O Muhammad, something, right? Except in this, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِ عَنِّي, there is nothing like فَقُلْ إِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. It is immediately فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. And the ulama have said, this is actually showing that Prophet Muhammad himself cannot be between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you want to invoke Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, understand that Allah is listening to you immediately. Allah is actually waiting for your dua. So that actually brings us to another hadith where he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَقْبَلُ دُعَاءً مِنْ قَلْبٍ غَافِلٍ لَهُ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not answer a dua that comes from a heart that is being distracted in this worldly life. And actually many people, when they make their dua, oh, Allah yaghfir lana, and he is playing games, or he's thinking about something else. You make your dua, you don't know what you have even said, because your dua is something that you memorized and you're just saying it out of, okay, it's a checkbox, I made a dua. But subhanAllah, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not answer your dua if it comes from a distracted heart. So that is, understanding and actually having the good thought of in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and good faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very crucial, and actually it's the most important thing that you have to have at the time of dua. Actually, another statement that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, لا يقول أحدكم اللهم اغفر لي إن شئت فإنه لا مستكره على الله. No one should say, oh Allah, forgive me if you like. Because no one can force Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do it. And this actually brings us to a very common mistake that people do. What is it? You make your dua by the statement, inshallah, inshallah. So you say, Allahumma ghfirli inshallah, 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 Allah will give me this, inshallah, Allah. You should never say this. Inshallah means, okay, Allah, if you like, do it. If you don't like, don't do it. That's what the word means. Of course, when we say it, sometimes, most of the time, we meant actually the opposite. We meant that, oh Allah, give us that, right? Right? When should we stop, Habibi? 7 o'clock. Okay, great, alhamdulillah. So it is against the sunnah to make the word inshallah during your dua. You see the point? And this is very crucial. Most of us, actually, perhaps all of us, when we make a dua, we say the word inshallah. And it's just something that He ﷺ explicitly has asked us to avoid and to stay away from. Okay, so now it's very important that during the dua, when you start your dua, of course you made your wudu, you raised your hands, you face the qibla. How He ﷺ used to or explain the best or the most promising shape of dua. He ﷺ actually once saw a man coming into the masjid and making a dua for himself. So He ﷺ said to the people around him, He said, لَقَدْ اسْتَعْجَلَ هَذَا, that he was in a rush. So He ﷺ went to him and He taught him. He said, if at the time when you start your dua, first, praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Second, make salah on me. Third, make your dua. And this is actually a very missing point. Most of us, when we make dua, Ya Rabbi ighfir, Ya Rab, I want to succeed in this exam, or oh Allah, give me this job, and whatever it is. We forget most of the time how to make our dua more respectful to the one that we are making our dua to. So praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's why it's the sunnah in the qunut is to start the dua, and this is in the Hanafi madhab, and it's very authentic, that He ﷺ used to say, what is the dua in the praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allahumma iyyaka na'bud wa laka nusalli wa nasjud wa ilayka nas'a wa nahfid narju rahmatak wa nakhsha adabak inna adabaka al-jidda bil-kuffari mulhiq. This dua is a sunnah that He ﷺ used to say. That actually goes before saying Allahumma hdina fi man hadayt wa afina fi man afayt wa tawallana fi man tawallayt wa barik lana fi ma atayt, although both of them are authentic. But you start by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whether it is this dua or something else, it's fine as long as you are praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the beginning. And then the second thing is to say Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. You probably, the best shape and form of sending salutation to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is to use the one that you use in your tashahhud. When you say Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallayta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid wa barak ala Muhammad. But you can always say Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, and then you make your dua. In your dua, the sunnah is that you make your dua without what we call it i'tida. And i'tida means that you actually cross the borderline of how you respect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's see. Many people say, Ya Rab, I want this type of house in Jannah, for example, or I want this specific thing in at my work. And that is actually against the sunnah, because why would someone say, Ya Rabbi, help me to earn or to get this job, this specific job? What makes you say this? Isn't it because you think that this will be good for you, right? And no one knows the future, correct? So sometimes perhaps that job that you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for, or that wife that you are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for, may not be the best one for you. So instead of saying oh Allah, I want this specific one, you can say, oh Allah, bless me with the best job for me, or with something that would make me wealthy, or I mean, a dua that actually takes away from the dua your human, the human side of it, which is that I have a limited knowledge. I just don't know what is good for me or for others. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to provide the best that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, right? So this is actually among the etiquettes of dua that many people may not even follow. Now, subhanallah, the sunnah is when you start with your dua, you start it with praising Allah and then making salat ala nabi, and then you do your dua, and then actually you end your dua with another salat ala nabi. Because there's also hadith where he said that whoever starts his dua with a salat ala nabi and ends it with salat ala nabi, that this may be a reason for the dua to be accepted. Now, among the etiquettes of dua is that even if you are so desperate in your dua, don't just expect that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would answer your dua as is, because Allah may know what is better for you. So that actually takes us to this hadith that I have mentioned after one of the Isha here, in which Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has said, ما من مسلم يدعو الله بدعوة ليس فيها إثم ولا قطيعة رحم إلا أعطاه الله بها إحدى ثلاث. That there's no Muslim who would make a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without making a sin or asking for a cut of their relatives, or cutting any ties with the relatives, except that Allah will surely give him or give her either of the three. And he ﷺ said, إِمَّا أَن يُعَجِّلَ لَهُ دَعْوَةً, either that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer his dua immediately or very soon. وَإِمَّا أَن يَدَّخِرَهَا لَهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may keep it for him in the day of judgment when he needs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive him or forgive him from sins, that Allah will answer, will replace the answering of his dua that he made in this dunya by giving him a better rank in Jannah, or by forgiving him in the day of judgment. And then the third one, وَإِمَّا أَن يَصْرِفَ عَنْهُ مِنَ السُّوءِ مِثْلَهَا, or that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may protect the person from something harmful that they may befall them, that is equivalent in the amount of what the person has made dua for. So that's why Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, "Ud'u Allah wa antum muqinuna bil ijaba." That when you make your dua, do your dua while you are assured, while you are confident that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer your dua. Now we know those three, right? And actually, when he sallallahu alaihi wasallam made those three, the Sahaba have said, "Ya Rasulullah, idhan nukthar." Then if this is the case, if every dua is going to be answered in one of those three shapes, then why we will be making many dua. And he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Allahu akthar," that Allah's bounty is way more abundant than what you think. So do as much dua as possible, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you. Okay. Now, one of the things that I actually wanted to also talk about in the etiquettes of dua is that you should also seek the times when the dua is most promising. Some of those times, and I need your help, because I mean there are many of them. Some of these is between adhan and iqamah. So after the adhan is over and before the iqamah, this is the time of dua. Of course, you make your sunnah, but it's a good time for dua. It's not the best time for Quran. I mean, many people take the mushaf and they start reciting Quran, maybe half a page or maybe a few ayah. Actually, this is the best time for dua. Okay. Another one is during your salah, especially in sujood, in the state of sujood, and after tashahhud before salam, as it was narrated in the authentic hadith. Especially during sujood and in the tashahhud before salam. And then, I mean, many people, unfortunately, they do their salam, they do some istighfar, and then they raise their hand with the dua. That's not the right time for dua. I mean, is it permissible? Yes, it is permissible. But this is not the right time for dua. The right time for dua is during sujood and before salam, in the tashahhud. Also, at the time when you break your fast. Also, at the time in the last portion of the night. Also, when the person is on travel, when the person is sick, and Wallahu a'lam, part of the reason of this is that the person will be so weak that just will humble themselves. When someone is sick, when someone is on travel, it's a hardship, right? Especially the old times type of travels. Can you remind me? The day of Jummah? Before sunset. What makes that? What is so special before the sunset, Habibi? Correct, but we're talking about what are the times that are more promising for dua. I don't know that there's anything special about dua before the sunset. Yeah, but of course it is not the time for prayer, of course. Not the time of doing nafil prayer. Yeah. Someone said Jum'ah. So what is in Jum'ah? Actually, probably you're talking about this. So in the day of Jum'ah, there are two times that are the most promising times. One is what the brother just mentioned, which is the last time before Adhan al-Maghrib. So some of the ulama have said immediately after Salat al-Asr all the way to Maghrib, and some of them said the very last portion of the day before Adhan al-Maghrib. And this is a sunnah that I see missing here at MasjidAlSalam, which is on the day of Jummah, come to Salat al-Maghrib early and make your dua before Adhan al-Maghrib. This is actually what they call it as Sa'at al-Istijaba. This is the hour of acceptance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So make sure you leverage this time. It's the last time. You probably are talking about like the last 20 minutes, because when we say sa'a, by the way, sa'a in the old time is not the 60 minutes. The sa'a is actually, they said it is what is enough to recite, for example, a surah like Surah Yasin, which is almost 20 minutes, right? You probably are talking about 20 minutes. So the last portion of last 20 minutes, that's half an hour before Adhan al-Maghrib on the day of Friday, this is one of the most promising times. And it's actually also from the time when the Imam starts the khutbah all the way until the prayer is over. So what happens there? The khutbah itself and the dua at the end of it, and then the 2 rak'ah that you do on Salat al-Jum'ah. So those times, during the khutbah and the prayer of Jum'ah, and before Adhan al-Maghrib on Jum'ah, those are the most promising times in the whole week. Okay, any other thing you can remind me? Arafa Allah khayru du'a'i du'a'u Arafa. The best of dua is the dua on the day of Arafah. Excellent. Jazakallah khair. وخير الدعاء ما دعوت به أنا والنبيون من قبلي. That the best of the dua on the day of Arafah is what the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to say. Anyone can tell us? La ilaha illallah. Ahsant. By the way, this La ilaha illallah is actually among the sunnah to start even your dua. Anyone can tell me an evidence about this? Why saying La ilaha illallah is a sunnah before dua? No, no, no. I want evidence. I want evidence. I want something from the Quran or from the Sunnah. Exactly. It's that the Nabi Allah Yunus, when he was in the whale, he's فنادى في الظلمات أن لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. So he started his dua with لا إله إلا أنت. So this is actually a great point. So anything else that remind me, please? Huh? Tahajjud. Tahajjud is actually is very crucial, and it actually has two versions. One is that it happens in the latest portion of the night, and also it happens during prayer. Barakallah fiqh. By the way, what is the when you make your dua, is it good to make it out loud or quietly, or even just in your mind? Like what is it? There are three common ways. Either you do it in your mind like this, and you're thinking about dua, or you say but quietly, or Allahumma ya Rabbi irhamna, ya Rabbi ighfir lana. So which one of these is the best? And tell me the evidence. You cannot just say something without evidence. Huh? Which one is the best? You can do all the three, but which one is the best? You got it right. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, "Ud'u rabbakum tadarru'an wa khufya." Wa khufya. Ud'u rabbakum, invoke Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tadarru'an means desperately. Wa khufya means quietly. So you make your dua in a way that you only hear yourself. And wallahu alam, this actually gives the person a better feeling that he's not showing off. He's not doing it so that others listen to it. Now, what we do in qunut, in Salat al-Witr, right? Is that the right thing? Or we're doing it out loud, right? Actually, there's difference of opinion. In the Hanafi madhab, they don't do it out loud. And actually, what was reported on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to do qunut, but he did not do it out loud, and he did not raise his hand during qunut. That's. I mean, if you look at all the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would not raise his hand. Or astaghfirullah. There is no hadith that says that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to raise his hand during qunut in the prayer. Qunut which comes either before ruku' or after getting up from the last ruku' and the witr. So in the Hanafi madhab, they don't really raise their hands, and they make their dua or their qunut quietly. And that actually comes from sunnah, that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't do it. Why do the other madhab do it the way that most of us do it? Is because during the time of Sahaba, when Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu have combined the Sahaba together, they used to do it. So they say that the Sahaba would never do something out of their own, out of the blue. It must have come from them seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's why it is the other madhahib, they say you do it out loud as the Sahaba did it, and you raise your hands. Do you do it before or after the ruku'? Both are okay. Both are okay. Both have evidence on it. Now let's talk about something very common. Is there a sunnah about wiping the face after dua? You know, many people make the dua, once you're done, they wipe their face. Is there any sunnah on this? Yes. Okay, now what you're telling us is when he sallallahu alaihi wasallam, before he goes to bed, he would combine his hands, he would blow with some moisture, not spit. So spitting is to is busaq. In Arabic is busaq. But nafith, kana yanfuth, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nafith is to blow. with moisture. That's what's, so nafith is different from nafakh in the sense that nafith has moisture. Nafakh is just blowing an air, right? So he ﷺ used to do this, and he would blow with an air, with the moisture, and then he would recite قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, right? 3 times. And every time he would do it, he would wipe his face and his everything that his hand can reach. But this is not dua. This is adhkar. So the question again, when you make your any dua, now for example, you wanted to go on the side, you make your dua. Would you do it on their face or not? Huh? Who does it? You do it. Who does it? Who else? Okay. So if you read through the hadith, there wasn't any mention of this. But Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah ta'ala was asked about it. And he said, I saw Sufyan ibn Uyayna, who was his scholar, one of the greatest scholars of hadith in Mecca. He said, I saw Sufyan ibn Uyayna and all of the scholars in Mecca doing it. And they would never bring it from nothing, right? Those are like among the greatest scholars in Islam. So they used to do it. And that's why in the madhahib there's difference of opinion. But wallahu a'lam, if someone does it, then there were a huge number of our pious predecessors who used to do it. Yes, there is not an authentic hadith that explicitly said that he ﷺ did it, but we have the practice of all those very close to the companion, not just late scholars, the ones who were so close to the companions who used to do it. And that's why, wallahu a'lam, it is fine to do it and it's fine not to do it. Both have a strong background on them. طيب, I think I did pass my time limit, so jazakumullah khair. I mean, if we were to talk about dua, I had a list and I was thinking about using it so that I can refresh my memory. But alhamdulillah, I did not, because if I have it, I will not finish until 8. So, jazakumullah khair. So let's stop here. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا.